Please. The manager's recommendation is for 2023-2024 budget.
All right, so what you have in front of you is the recommended budget for 23-24. We've been meeting about this since the end of April, so we've had lots of time to talk about, I think, every department and most everything in each department. What my plan is today is to go through my budget message and then set a public hearing date for the public hearing for the budget later on this month. So I'm going to just hit some high points in the message. I'm not going to read all the message. But the recommended budget for this year for 23-24 is $18,895,905. It's for all town operations, capital improvements, and debt service. This is an 11.8% increase of the current budget. Reasons for the increase: overall addition in personnel, capital items to be purchased across all departments, operating expenses increasing, as well as proposed capital projects in the utility fund. In addition to those increased needs, I'd also note we've got quite a few new park renovation projects in this budget. Recommended tax rate of 32.1 cents per $100 valuation. That would be a 1.5 cent increase from the current year of 30.60. Property owner who has real property valued at $400,000 will see a $60 per year increase over the current year. This will be our first property tax increase since 2010. And as I told y'all, I think at the last meeting, looking back through minutes, that would be the second such increase in about 30 years. The ad valorem taxes will yield approximately $5,372,500 based on our tax collection rate of 99.5%. This amount has increased $409,540 over the current year. Water fund, I'm proposing 5.9% increase for in-town customers and a 12% increase for out-of-town customers. These rates are in line with our water fund rate analysis we did in fiscal year 21-22 that was performed by Withers and Ravenel. Given both the current and potential future projects involving this fund, I believe it's in our best interest to raise rates so we can make sure we're prepared for these capital projects in the water fund. Water fees and charges are current rates generate $2,564,100. Residential customers using an average of 5,000 gallons a month will see an increase of $2.76 per month. Out-of-town customers will see a $10.62 per month increase. Stormwater fund, there are no changes in fees from the current year. Single-family residences will continue to pay $72 annually. Total revenue for the stormwater fund is budgeted at $381,800. Talking about some other revenues, in our general fund, local option sales tax is one of our big ones, of course. We are projecting this to increase $244,700 over the current year at a total of $2,510,000 even for local option sales tax. Unrestricted intergovernmental, this is utility franchise tax, video programming, electricity, that sort of thing. That is going to yield approximately $607,805. Restricted intergovernmental, what we're talking about here is our POW bill allocation. This is all restricted to specific expenses in the POW bill fund, which are related to streets, sidewalks, street department type expenses. Sales and services. This category is comprised mostly of recreation charges, different things we do in recreation. As we talked about, as we went through the budget meetings this year, we did talk about a new leaf removal program, which would be assisting waste reduction, which is what we're trying to do. We've been trying to do that for the past couple of years here. We're going to begin charging $2 a month for all sanitation customers for that service. Miscellaneous. These have seen an increase from the current budget. Mainly these relate to our investments. I think that's the biggest increase we've seen from last year with interest rates on the rise. We are anticipating about $472,750 in revenue from our investments, which is a big change from the past few years. This budget also includes a fund balance appropriation of $1,344,500 in order to balance the budget. If this is all spent, this would leave us approximately $3,166,622, or 33% of our proposed general fund budget in unappropriated fund balance. This is within our guidelines. We have a 30% internal policy here. The state requires you to have at least 8% in reserve, so we are well above that figure.
Josh, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So the 30%, that is the board has set that, does the board can change that policy? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Just want to make sure.
That's correct. I will note, the 1.3445, over 700,000 of that's coming from ARPA money. So if you recall, we have that excess in ARPA that we've talked about for the past couple of years. So in actuality, you will be using 600,000 from our fund balance reserve, not counting ARPA money.
Where does the other ARPA fund show up? Funds.
So they're all in fund balance now. So we decided to use the ARPA funds to pay for salaries, which took us about a year to do, and that just allowed us to have no strings attached, essentially, with that funding from the federal government. So all that rolls back into fund balance. That's how it works.
So in this 30, that's part of that 33% there.
That's correct. Now these are unaudited numbers right now. So I think that's probably going to be larger.
So without that, we would have probably been down somewhere close to 2.7 if we had to put the ARPA funds in there.
You're talking about the 3.166?
Correct.
I don't know if that's an accurate statement, Mr. Mayor, but like I said, this is an unaudited number, so it doesn't have all that from the auditor in there yet. So that's our best guess on where we are right now.
I just want to make sure, but that's where the funds are, though. It's $400,000, roughly $400,000.
Personnel, so this category, I'm just going to talk about personnel operating expenditures and capital outlay, as well as debt service. So this category, $9,019,700, or 47% of the total budget. These expenditures include salaries and wages, FICA, retirement, group insurance, and other miscellaneous benefits for 91 full-time employees, 13 volunteer firemen, and 6 elected officials. This request also includes the cost of living of 4% that we talked about. We had that at 5%. We reduced that to 4%, of course, beginning July 1st. There's also rising retirement costs as well, and the creation of 3 new positions and expansion of 2 others.
What's the third position? There were 2 policemen.
So yeah, 2 policemen.
You had proposed the public information officer.
Yes, that didn't make it. So you have 2 policemen full-time. You have a community garden position that's going full-time. You also have a waste reduction position going full-time. And then you have a part-time position in recreation that's getting funded as well.
So that's the other new position.
That's correct.
I thought that was an expansion. Am I misremembering that?
Which one?
The Lake Tomahawk.
The part-time position?
Yeah.
So that, I don't know if it's an expansion. That has historically been budgeted in the past, but we have not budgeted for it for the past 3 or 4 years.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
The budget contains $871,200 for the town's part in the state health plan, supplemental insurance, and general health insurance. Of course, those costs continue to rise faster than inflation. Approximately $91,000 has been budgeted for travel and training this year. This funding will be used to improve job skills, gain knowledge of the latest equipment and technology, and to remain up to date on a variety of issues that impact the town. Internal training will focus on safety, mental health, wellness, and the use of technology and general compliance. Our operating expenditures are at $6,462,205 of the total budget. These are costs that are not personnel or not capital. Capital outlay, so this this budget sees a lot of capital, $2,332,500 in capital. Those are really what composes that is vehicles, equipment, utility projects. And just a reminder, capital really is anything that's greater than $5,000. Items in the general fund for capital are paving, sidewalk projects, or multiple park projects we've talked about, police vehicles, upgrades to buildings and technology. The fire service fund, their vehicles, equipment such as thermal imaging cameras, handheld radios, a drone, and fire hose. The water fund will include water line replacements, chemical analyzers, repeaters, ground penetrating radars, and pressure reducing valves on Chapel Road. Stormwater fund includes a stormwater control measure on Terry Estates Drive and a new sidewalk related to that stormwater control measure. And the development services fund, we've got in here a feasibility study for donated town property and the completion of the bicycle boulevard. The feasibility study, of course, is the plan for Hemp Hill and the Ventures property.
Does this capital outlay include, when you get that 2.3 million, does that include the money that will be used for the two greenways A and B?
No, sir. Debt service, it accounts for $721,500. This category represents commitments the town has entered for equipment or projects that are substantial in nature. Sometimes the equipment's financed as a way of spreading out the cost to reflect the time of service to the citizens, as in financing of police vehicles. Thus, those paying the debt service through their tax dollars are the ones receiving the benefit of the equipment. Other times, if the project is such a large scale, it's not feasible to pay cash and interest rates are at an acceptable level, as in some utility projects. So next, I'm going to go into your revenues and expenditures are balanced. General fund at $11,129,505. Water fund at $2,564,100. Fire service fund $2,844,900. Stormwater $381,800. Planning fund $779,600. The golf fund $864,100. PAL bill $290,000 even. Police department outreach $22,000 even. Technology fund $15,000 even. The PD forfeiture fund $1,900 even, and penalties and fines at $3,000 even. Now, as I said earlier, that total amount $18,895,905. I think the most important part is the budget. This budget, of course, is proposed by me. At this time, it is neither final nor is it necessarily a reflection of what will be approved by town council. You are going to undertake a review, I'm sure, study this for the next couple of weeks. You may have changes today. Bring back those changes to me, whatever those may be. We'll have our public hearing in a few weeks, and that'll be it. Any questions?
Josh, were there any, I know we've gone over everything in these meetings, any big changes between those meetings and what's in here?
No, sir. No, I mean, from last meeting, we sit here and we talked about what we were going to cut, what we were going to raise, if we were going to raise things. Everything that we talked about at the last meeting is incorporated in here, as long as fine, and of course the other meetings as well. But
Right.
I think at the last meeting we kind of got it narrowed down to what we were going to be looking at cutting right. So yes, that's all reflected in here, Councilmember Christie.
After going home last week, after discussing, kind of looking at that list of things we're gonna cut and how we're gonna raise funds to raise revenues to balance the budget. What stuck with me was that we're gonna probably be, last week we talked a lot about all the different capital improvement projects and all the different expenses, new trucks for the fire department, several new expenditures that we haven't kind of been putting off. My concern is that next year we're gonna be in the same spot where we're having to either push things off further or raise taxes again. And I guess my question for the board, or for you, Josh, is whether you think that we'll be, what kind of shape we'll be in next year based on this year's budget, and if it makes sense for us to consider additional revenues this year, just so we can set some funds aside for next year, or just see what happens. Go from there.
Well, so we've got a couple more years until the next reval. The county will do the next reval in the 25-26 budget. So we've got 2 more budgets before then. At that point, there's going to be a property evaluation. And more than likely, it's going to increase. But you're not going to know that for sure for a couple more years. I'll say, you're going to have, we're spending down this ARPA money. So the budget, I think, would be, at least from a capital perspective, is going to be smaller next year, right? Because we're going to, unless we make some decisions to do something different, but we're going to run out of that ARPA money. So that, that money's going to be gone. So you're not going to have that kind of money to allocate to capital.
So I guess the question for the board is whether we think that $1.5 million is the appropriate amount, or if it makes sense to go ahead and make it 2 or something, so we have a little bit of additional funds to set aside. To budget for next year. Of course.
Speak of, increase, let's say we go to 2%, y'all decide to go to 2%. That's only going to be 75,000, 80, something like that. Which, if you look at the revenues, one thing that has made it easier this year is the fact that our sales tax has gone up $250,000. Kind of a slowdown. Expenditures by families will be less, and therefore that figure could be less.
Yeah, I would agree with what the mayor just said. That is likely that is probably a likely thing to happen in the future, where the sales tax is not going to continue to grow year after year. But maybe we're both wrong, and it will. It would be nice if it does. But for the past couple of years, that's just not been. No one's seen a slowdown in sales tax. It just keeps going. I also say, the investments for this year too have been a big. I think last year we budgeted about $10,000 total for investments, and this year we're budgeting almost $500,000. So it's that's also a big difference.
And that could also
change. That will change. It's not good. It's just the fact of when that's going to happen.
Well, to that issue, whether we should raise more or not, I mean, if it's, so that's accurate, it's 75,000 for a 0.5%, roughly. Yeah. So to me, it's small.
Yeah.
I think your questions are very proper about thinking about future budgets and trying to project out and control expenses and look for opportunities for that. Last year and then this year, this coming year, there's a lot of expansion and spending for sure. But these are things that we decided to focus on employees and increasing pay and all that. So they're all good things. But
I would also note, I think this budget includes 4 of the 5, I think, priorities that y'all had determined in the retreat. One thing I think we missed was the public information officer or communications person.
The building built
And the building
facilities.
needs study, that's correct, thank you. But yeah, the decision council made to deal with employee pay, which was a big one and needed to be done, that adds, alone, quite a bit of money. The pay study itself was $360,000 roughly, and last year we did quite a bit of salary adjustments, so not including the pay study, which probably comes up to around $750,000, $800,000 worth of stuff last year.
I guess no one wants to raise taxes, but I certainly don't. But the reality is that things are getting more expensive, and we need to meet the demands of the community. So if we stick with the penny and a half, I'm totally comfortable with that, and I think that's great. It's balanced in this budget, but the reality is that we will need to raise it again, and sooner than 10 years from now or 15 years from now that we've done in the past. We're gonna have to change that cycle of only adjusting every decade to keep up with the demands of future budgets.
That's why the pay study was so expensive. We were catching up from, it was behind for many years. And it was a lot, so I would agree with you that it's better to keep up than try to catch up later.
Josh, where does, if we adopted this tax rate that's proposed here, where would we sit with other municipalities in Buckingham County?
We would still be the lowest. And I can't recall Councilmember Christie, who would be just above us, but it won't be by a whole lot, maybe half a cent.
And I don't think the other municipalities have the robust recreation opportunities that we offer in Black Mountain. So we're doing a lot with less money than many of them.
We're the second largest municipality in this county. And I think that shows in what we provide to our citizens.
It's good to be thinking about revenue, where we're gonna get it, but the biggest thing that this board will have to deal with next year is they dealt with it this year by going ahead and raising taxes, or it looks like we're gonna raise taxes penny and a half, but bottom line is we're spending more than we're bringing in.
One of the things I really appreciate, however, is that I feel like every department head came to us having already made cuts in their proposed budget. I feel like they were very thoughtful, and knowing that it was going to be a tricky year, tough year for revenue. I really appreciate the work the department heads did before they even came to us. And they made significant reductions in what they thought they wanted at first. And I appreciate that we didn't have to do that. So in terms of we're spending more than we're taking in, it's just two sides of the same coin, right? And we need to fix that. All right. We need to continue providing quality service for the citizens of Black Mountain in every way. And it costs money. And I think this budget reflects sound spending. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed that we're spending this money. I'm proud of the work we did on the salary increases. It's been a long time since there's been a tax increase. Nobody likes to do it, but it just costs money to run a town and do it well.
Josh, every budget that I've been a part of has relied on some fund balance to balance. the
Probably almost every budget that anyone does is gonna run.
budget. So there's always budgeting more than
Yes,
revenues.
yes.
Because
And as I've said to you in the past, that number is just on paper. That number, fund balance number is on paper. 604,000, I think, is what we were supposed to use this year to balance the budget. We will not use that money this year. We will not use all that money.
Right, so when we get to audited statements,
That's correct.
it's likely to be larger than we anticipate.
That's correct. You will see less of a need to use unappropriated unassigned fund balance to balance the budget because your expenses, your revenues and expenses never match at the end of the year. And I can tell you from the expense side, we never have a full staff of people working here. Never. So we budget that as we were going to have a full staff, but that is not possible. And I can probably say that for any town. That's just not, you're gonna have shortfalls in staffing. It's just not, you're not gonna use all that staffing money. And capital for this year has been another place where we've struggled. We just haven't been able to get the product. And so, that money, ultimately, if it's not spent, it rolls back into the fund balance. Savings.
and several of our capital projects are funded through ARPA funds.
That's correct. Yeah, all of your rec projects, the AV upgrade for this room, I know was as well. It's a sidewalk for $30,000 was funding as well with that ARPA money. And I don't know that exact figure, but I think there's still around a little less than $500,000 left that we need to allocate at some point.
Right now, the way that you got it set up here, when I look at the capital improvements, talks about the chief wants to go ahead and spend $800,000 on a new truck here, and then you got a new truck, looking like in the next year.
That's correct. So that's a discussion we're gonna have to have after this budget. About how we make that happen, or if we don't make it happen, how do we put a plan in
Certainly
place to make it
hoping
happen?
what's brought into the budget, because it's been made aware from the reading I've done to a lot of these manufacturers. As you're talking about, part of the problem is what's taking so long is the fact that the different chassis bodies is one of the biggest holdups that there is. And some of these manufacturers are recommending, as they did to Fairview, and that's what Fairview's looking at doing, is going ahead and rebuilding not one but two of their engines, so that they could get another 10-year life out of it, and the expenditure would be $375,000.
I think,
I think that's something that we ought to seriously consider, as opposed to buying a brand new engine and then waiting to think about getting another special made engine.
from a staff perspective, we're happy to look at different options.
Oh, one more thing is, after speaking with Archie and Josh, I think you as well, Josh is been getting quotes on rebuilding the dugouts for the.
That Josh.
That Josh is getting quotes for rebuilding the Little League baseball dugouts, which has not come yet, but depending on what that comes in as, I may be requesting, Archie, I know, it's feeling the same way, I've added that into the budget, building that into the budget.
Well, but we're good.
Yeah, we're just waiting on Asheville Fence right now to give us their estimate, but we've got everything else. We're gonna do the work internally on some of it. We'll contract out the concrete, but we're gonna do some of the building work ourselves, save some money. But we'll need the concrete work done by a contractor, and then the fence, of course, done. But I think we're gonna be, I hate to say 30 or 40,000 maybe, ish.
Probably close to it.
Okay, closer to 50. But We'll do it as cheap as we can.
Nice man, sorry, I didn't call you much.
Another question, Josh, where are we on that, request for funding on recycle toters?
We have not heard back from the last agency, I don't think. I need to get with Rochelle. She usually lets me know, so I'll find out where we are with that.
Does it heard anything in a while?
I'll get you something out today.
So the process is we would have a special
Yes.
call meeting
So-
for this.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that. I think I like that a little better than trying to add it into a regular meeting. It just gets kind of chaotic with all the other agenda items. I would, we just make sure we've got enough time for the public hearing. I would be looking at the third week in June, which is the same week that our meeting is on the 12th. We could do any day that week minus, actually the 13th or 14th would be best for us staff wise. If not, we can push it to the following week. The 19th to the 23rd, preferably earlier that week. If it makes it easier, I can just maybe tell you a day and see if that works for you. What about June 14th? How does that work for everybody? What, you want to do 8:30 or 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock? What time of day you want to do it?
My preference would be 8:30, but
I'm good with 8:30.
If we're not, I mean, since it is a public hearing, does it make sense for it to be outside of
good point.
business hours?
It gives people an opportunity to come that may not have that opportunity, so why don't you do 5:30 or 6?
We're never gonna capture everyone's schedule.
Sure.
Yeah,
I could do any of those times, so.
how about 5:30 on the 14th?
Okay.
Does that work? What we'll do today, our responsibility on the staff side, we'll get this posted. This will be available for inspection in the clerk's office. Hard copy, we'll get the digital copy posted on the website. And someone will just need to make a motion to set the public hearing for that day.
I'll move that we set public hearing for June 14th, 2023, 5:30.
Second.
Discussion on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
So just to clarify, after the public hearing, would we be approving the budget or
I think that's how we've done it in the past,
at that meeting?
at that meeting. You can always wait, but that's typically how we've done it.
If there were, a large change that we wanted to make or something for further discussion, we would have time to do that.
We would have time to do that, or you can always vote on it later. So if it's a substantial change, it may be easier to come back.
So
Just
we
to be
could
honest
do
with you.
some of that process at the meeting, or we could call.
You can do some of that process at the meeting, and then we could do another call meeting to about. I just would, if we're gonna make a substantial change, I want to make sure we got it right.
Yeah,
If it's something small, I think we can do that on the fly and not be too concerned. But
That's a meeting with it.
Anybody got anything else? Not, meeting adjourned.